It's December 2004, and it's a special holiday season because my wife is a few months pregnant, and we're visiting family in Miami for the last time before we become parents. And against our better judgment, we've flown Northwest Airlines to get there. And every experience we've had on NWA up until that point has been horrible, and including getting stuck on the tarmac for 2 hours waiting for our plane to be de-iced en route to Miami, which, if you're pregnant, you know having to sit for 2 hours strapped in, smelling all of the smells on a plane is a nightmare. So we swore that NWA meant never will again, except for the flight home, of course. And this visit with our family was more meaningful than usual. My sister had a baby. Her son was just 6 months old, and he was cute, and he was funny, and he was absolutely terrifying because he represented everything that our family was about to become. And we imbued every experience that Christmas with all of this meaning that had all of the ignorant optimism that only about-to-be first-time parents can have. Everything was the last, and with hope of being the next, right? It was the last time that we were going to get a bunch of presents for each other, but hey, next Christmas we'd be buying presents for the baby instead. Or it's the last time we're going to be the kids in the family house. Next year we'll have to be adults, we'll be parents. And after a week of this, we were ready to go home. And we're sitting on the plane, strapped in, and the doors are closed. And my wife, Michelle, who usually has suboptimal smell, right? I mean, her sense of smell doesn't work as well as mine, but in the first trimester of pregnancy, she's given this like superhero quality of snifferdom. She's picking things out of the air, and she says to me, as the plane's being pushed back from the gate, "Do you smell something? Something burning?" And my sense of smell being better than hers under normal circumstances, I said, "No, I don't smell anything." And so they push the plane back, and as we begin to taxi, it starts to get hot. And that's normal, right? Because they never turn the air conditioning on the planes until you take off. It always seems like they, keep the blinds down until we get going. And so as we're rolling along, she starts to get really uncomfortable. And it's not just her, it's other people on the plane as well. And the temperature is starting to escalate, and it's no longer just hot. Now it's like tin can, 250-person sauna hot. And as we turn the corner and we're about to take off, the conversations taking place throughout the rest of the cabin are all the one thing, like, really? We're gonna take off in this? And it's starting to become unbearable, like, no, let me out of this thing. I don't want to be on this plane. It's too hot, and we're strapped in, and it starts to take off, and as the nose comes up and the wheels come off the ground, the cabin fills with smoke. And a profound silence falls across the entire airplane as 250 people, no moaning, no wailing, no screaming, just silence of a plane full of people contemplating what might be their last few moments on this planet. And Michelle and I turn to each other, and we have this heartbreaking moment where we look in each other's eyes and we realize, this might be it. And we had so many plans. This was meant to be our last trip before we became parents, not our last trip, right? We didn't even know if we were having a boy or a girl, right? We had names picked out, a spreadsheet, boys and girls. We were waiting till it was born. We didn't know. And it's an eternity, it seems, 45, 60 seconds the plane is taking up, and finally we level off at an extremely low altitude, but it seemed like an eternity, and the pilot comes on, and he says, "Ladies and gentlemen, we're aware of some excess temperatures in the cabin. We're gonna turn around and get you back on the ground in a jiffy, so just stay in your seats and remain buckled up." And he sends this big banking turn, and the flight attendant comes to our seat because I'm in the window looking at the wing, and he says, "If you see anything unusual, would you let us know?" "Unusual like what, sir?" "Unusual. Unusual like flames? That would be unusual." And we go, We go sailing out over the Atlantic Ocean, way too far out over the Atlantic for all of us. Well, you know, we're looking at this going, the airport's back there. Nobody wants to swim that far. And he makes this big banking turn, and he comes back in, and as we're coming into land, the fire trucks are on either side of the runway, and they're moving before we even land. And as we're landing, they're picking up speed, and by the time the plane stops, they have us surrounded. The whole airport is shut down. We're in the middle of the runway with fire trucks all around us with their water cannons aimed right at us. And now all of us are contemplating what life would be like getting to go down one of those little slides. They check the plane out. Apparently it passes enough muster for us to be safe enough to go back to the gate. We get to the gate, and that quiet multitude of pondering people turns into an angry mob yelling at the people working the gates, and everything quickly turns. And I managed to negotiate 2 tickets on the next flight to Detroit, where we have a 6-hour layover, enjoying all the sights and sounds, but especially smells of that airport. And as for NWA, we never have again.